My name is Ryan Mitchell, and for a long time, my life felt like it was stuck in a loop of disappointment. I used to wake up every morning in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Cincinnati. It wasn't much: peeling paint, leaky faucet, and a window that let in more cold than sunlight. But it was all I had left after everything spiraled out of control. 6 months ago, I had a steady job as a junior marketing analyst. Nothing flashy, but enough to keep me afloat and pay the rent on time. I even had a dream of eventually starting my own brand consultancy. I had plans. But plans don't mean much when your company downsizes, your name's on the cut list, and the severance check doesn't even cover 2 months' rent. I tried to hold it together. At first, I treated unemployment like a break, time to refresh and come back stronger. But as the weeks dragged into months, the optimism faded fast. Rejection emails piled up. Friends stopped calling. I sold my car to keep up with utilities. Eventually, I found myself walking 10 blocks to the local library just to use the internet and apply for jobs I'd never hear back from. I'd sit at the computer terminal, watching people pass by outside the window, living their lives, while mine stood still. I'd try to look busy when others passed, as if I were working, not failing. Every day looked the same. Wake up. Make a single egg stretch for breakfast. Check the mailbox, mostly bills. Walk to the library. Apply for 5 jobs. Walk back. Eat whatever was left in the pantry. Sleep. Repeat. Even my reflection started to look unfamiliar. Dark circles, hollow eyes, scruff that I didn't bother shaving anymore. My wardrobe was down to one decent button-up shirt and a pair of worn jeans. I avoided mirrors and ignored calls from my mom. I didn't want her to hear the defeat in my voice. One rainy Wednesday afternoon, something broke the monotony. I was dragging my feet up the stairs to my apartment when I noticed an envelope poking out from my mailbox. It was cream-colored and thick, different from the usual junk mail or late notices. There was no return address, no stamp, just my name, neatly typed in a serif font. Ryan Mitchell. It wasn't even sealed, just folded shut. I held it for a moment, puzzled. Probably another scam, I thought. But something about the way it looked, the way it felt, made my hands tremble a little. I opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The paper was heavy, almost like cardstock. On it was a short message, written in cursive. Sometimes the future waits for you to stop chasing it. This is your time. Follow the instructions. Below that line was an address. That was it. No signature, no explanation. I looked around the hallway instinctively, like maybe someone was playing a joke. No one. Just flickering lights and the sound of rain hitting the metal stairs outside. My heart raced. It was just a letter, just words. But it shook something loose inside me, something buried deep under months of depression. I went inside, placed the envelope on the small kitchen counter, and stared at it for a long time. I paced. I tried to eat, but the food had no taste. Tried to watch something on my laptop, but couldn't focus. What was this? Who sent it? And why now, after months of nothing? Part of me wanted to toss it. I was too tired to chase shadows. But another part of me, a part one hadn't felt in months, felt alive. Curious. Hopeful even. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing those words in my head like a looped whisper. This is your time. By morning, I made my decision. I would go to the address. What did I have to lose? I had no job, no prospects, no one counting on me. But maybe, just maybe, someone was. And maybe that someone believed I had something left worth discovering. The address on the letter led to a part of the city I hadn't been to in years. It was tucked away in an older district where the buildings still had character. Red brick facades, black iron staircases, and street lamps that looked like they belonged in a 1920s film set. I double-checked the folded paper in my pocket. 47, Hale Street. The rain from yesterday had given way to a dull gray sky, and the air smelled like wet asphalt and old leaves. I walked the last few blocks, heart thudding louder with every step. Finally, I found it a small, 2-story brownstone sandwiched between a boarded-up bookstore and an empty lot. The windows were clean, though, and a brass 47 plaque gleamed on the front door. I hesitated. There was still time to walk away. I could chalk this up to some weird mistake and pretend it never happened. But I had nothing waiting for me back home, just a drafty apartment and another pile of rejection emails. I climbed the 3 stone steps and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Harder this time. Still nothing. Just when I turned to leave, I heard a voice behind me. You looking for someone? I spun around to see an older man, probably in his 70s, standing at the bottom of the steps. He wore a beige overcoat, a gray scarf, and held a cane in one hand like it was just for style, not support. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for his age. I got this letter, I said, holding it up. It had this address. He smiled faintly. Of course it did. Of course? Come on in, he said, brushing past me and unlocking the door like he'd been expecting me. The inside was warm and smelled of cedar and old books. A grandfather clock ticked in the corner. Paintings of people I didn't recognize lined the hallway. Sit. He gestured to a leather armchair in what looked like a study. He took the seat across from me behind an antique wooden desk, pulled open a drawer, and slid out a folder with my name printed on it. I stared at it. Who are you? He folded his hands calmly. You can call me Mr. Whitaker. I work with a foundation. We specialize in opportunities. Opportunities? I asked. You're at a crossroads, Mr. Mitchell. You've lost things, job, confidence, maybe even your sense of purpose. I blinked. How do you know all that? He didn't answer. Instead, he opened the folder and revealed documents, photos, and something that looked like a handwritten note in a woman's cursive. This belonged to someone who once knew you, he said softly. Someone who believed you had potential. I leaned forward. My eyes caught the name at the top of the letter. Margaret Bell. My breath hitched. That was my grandmother's name. She passed away when I was 12. I remembered her vaguely. Warm hugs, a jar of lemon candies, stories about stars and magic when she tucked me in. She left this with us before she died, Mr. Whitaker explained. She believed you might need it someday. Said you had a fire in you, but that life might try to put it out. I couldn't speak. My hands shook as I took the note and read the gentle, slanted writing. If Ryan finds this, tell him I always believed in him, even when he doesn't believe in himself. He is more than what the world sees. Give him what he needs when the time is right. What does that mean? Asked, my voice low. Give me what I need? Mr. Whitaker opened a drawer and pulled out a smaller envelope. She left you something. A key, literally and metaphorically. Inside was a brass key, old but polished. Attached was a tag with another address, this one outside the city. A cabin, he said. Yours now. It's where she lived for a while. There are journals, photographs, and maybe some answers. If you want them. I felt dizzy. This was too much, too strange. My grandmother had been gone for years. Why would she do this? Why now? I don't understand, I murmured. You don't need to.
Not yet, he said.
But you will, if you're willing to look. He stood and offered me the folder. You can go back to what you know, or take a step toward something different. It's your choice. I took the folder, clutching it like a lifeline. I don't have a car, I said quietly. I sold it months ago. There's a car out back. The keys are in the glove box, he replied without missing a beat. It's registered to your name. I stared at him in disbelief. This wasn't a coincidence. This had been planned for a long time. I left the brownstone in a daze. Behind it, in a tiny garage, was a used blue sedan. The kind my grandmother would have called respectable. The glove box held the keys and a GPS with one destination preloaded, Coldwater Springs. As I sat behind the wheel for the first time in months, I realized my world had just cracked open. Someone had been watching, planning, waiting. And now, the real journey was beginning. I drove for hours in silence, the GPS directing me north along winding country roads. The landscape slowly changed. Buildings gave way to open fields, then forests thick with evergreens. The further I got from the city, the more surreal everything felt. I kept glancing at the folder in the passenger seat. My name on the front still didn't feel real. The key sat beside it, glinting in the sunlight that cut through the clouds like a quiet promise. Coldwater Springs wasn't even on the main map. It was more like it, buried in a part of the state I'd never explored. But something about the name pulled at me. Eventually, I arrived at the end of a dirt road that curved into a clearing. There it was, an old cabin with smoke curling faintly from the chimney. Weathered wood, green shutters, a porch swaying slightly in the breeze. It looked like something out of a memory I didn't know I had. I parked the car and walked slowly to the front door, heart pounding. I didn't know what I was expecting. Ghosts? Answers? A trap? The key slid into the lock like it had been waiting for me. Inside, the cabin smelled like pine and lavender. It was simple but cozy. Bookshelves lined with old novels, thick rugs over creaky wooden floors, a stone fireplace with logs already stacked inside. And on the desk near the back window, a box. My name again, handwritten in blue ink. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were 4 leather-bound journals, photographs of my grandmother as a younger woman, and letters addressed to me, each sealed in separate envelopes. One for each year of my life since she passed. I sank into the chair and just stared. Why would she do this? Who planned something like this nearly 2 decades in advance? I opened the first envelope, marked Ryan, age 13. You're probably confused. Maybe angry. I would be too. But I've always known you'd need something more, something beyond what the world gives you. You were never meant for ordinary, Ryan. This cabin is yours now. I kept it for you. In the journals, you'll find things I never told anyone about who I was, what I learned, what I wanted you to carry forward. You have to decide what to do next. You can sell this place and walk away, or you can stay and uncover the rest. The choice will always be yours. The words hit like a wave. She had seen something in me, something even I had forgotten existed. And here she was, guiding me from beyond the grave, leaving breadcrumbs of love and mystery. That night, I lit the fireplace and opened the first journal. It wasn't just diary entries. It was part memoir, part map. My grandmother wrote about her travels in the 1960s, places I'd never heard of, people she met, symbols she studied. There were passages underlined with notes in the margins like, "The world is made of more than matter. Intuition is the thread between reality and possibility." And, "Some bloodlines carry more than memories. They carry legacies." That line stopped me cold. Was she implying our bloodline? That I was meant to inherit something more than just her property? The questions only multiplied, but now I was no longer drowning in doubt. I was swimming in mystery. Over the next few days, I stayed in the cabin and began piecing things together. I read late into the night, my mind spinning with stories of underground networks, secret societies, and hidden truths. Some of it felt fantastical, but oddly, none of it felt impossible. And then came the first sign that I wasn't alone. It was the 3rd night. The fire was low, and I had just finished a journal entry about a group called the 13th Circle. According to my grandmother, they were keepers of unseen truths, tasked with preserving knowledge from being corrupted by power. As I reached for another letter, I heard it. A knock. Sharp. Deliberate. It came from the back door. I froze. No one knew I was here. No one should have known. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly approached. Through the window, I could just make out a silhouette, a figure standing completely still. When I opened the door, no one was there. But taped to the frame was another envelope. Same paper. Same style. But this one said simply, "You are not the only one searching." My hands clenched. Suddenly, this wasn't just about me discovering the past. Someone else knew what my grandmother left behind. I couldn't trust the quiet anymore. Was Mr. Whitaker part of this group? Was he a guardian or a manipulator? Was the cabin safe or a trap? But even as paranoia crept in, so did determination. I had come too far. I couldn't back down now. Whatever this legacy was, whatever she saw in me, I had to earn it. I started drawing up a plan. I'd stay. I'd read every journal. Follow every clue. And I'd find out who else was watching. For the first time in months, I had a mission. But the stakes were no longer about just survival. Now I was guarding something sacred. And someone wanted to take it. The days blurred into each other. I barely slept. The journals, the letters, and now the envelope left at my door. All of it consumed me. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was waiting for me to make the next move. By the end of the first week, I'd covered an entire wall with notes, timelines, symbols from the journals, maps my grandmother had drawn, and names I didn't recognize. One name kept resurfacing over and over. Malcolm Vale. Sometimes it was just initials, other times full passages. If you ever meet Malcolm Vale, don't trust his charm. He hides shadows behind his smile. Another one. He wanted to use the 13th Circle's work for profit. I refused. He said I'd regret it. I had no idea who he was. But deep in my gut, I knew. That's who left the note on my door. I started digging. From the local library, I pulled everything I could about Coldwater Springs. Old newspapers, property records, obituaries. And there he was, buried in an article from 2003. Entrepreneur Malcolm Vale's biotech lab raided after unauthorized experiments discovered. He'd vanished not long after that. No charges. No follow-up. Just disappeared. Until now. That night, I drove into town to get supplies. When I came back, there were footprints in the snow, fresh ones.
Too large to be mine.
Leading straight to the window where I kept the journals. I walked slowly to the edge of the woods behind the cabin and yelled into the darkness. I know who you are. Come out. Silence. Then, I'm not here to hurt you, Ryan. The voice was calm.
Polished.
British, maybe. And it came from behind a tree not 15 feet away. A tall man stepped into the moonlight. Gray coat, scarf tucked neatly, dark eyes that didn't blink often enough. I only want to talk. Malcolm Vale? I asked. He smirked. You've done your homework. What do you want? I asked, fists clenched. Something that belongs to me, he said. Something your grandmother stole. She didn't steal anything, I said, jaw tight. She protected it. He stepped closer, voice still measured. The circle was naive, hoarding knowledge in dusty books. Margaret had brilliance and secrets. I helped build her legacy, and she betrayed me. That cabin? That library of hers? It's not for you. You're just a placeholder. Try me, I growled. He nodded slightly. So be it. The next morning, the cabin was ransacked. Books thrown, pages torn. The wall I had mapped out slashed through with a knife. Whoever had done it, Vale or someone he sent, wasn't just sending a message. They were looking for something. But they didn't find it. Because I had moved the real final journal days before. Buried it beneath the floorboards beneath my grandmother's old trunk. It was the only one that didn't have a title on the spine, just an etched sigil. A circle, pierced by 13 lines. Inside, the first page read, "This is the record of the keeper. To read further is to accept the burden." And then, there is a vault, hidden beneath the cabin. Not just metaphorical.
Real.
Protected. If you are reading this, then your blood has unlocked what time could not. I read every page. It told of artifacts buried beneath the earth. Of codes my grandmother created to protect knowledge that could either heal or destroy, depending on whose hands held it. And then blueprints. A trapdoor. Symbols etched into the floor. And a final warning. Malcolm will come. When he does, choose the fire, not the silence. That night, I waited. Not afraid, ready. When I heard footsteps again, this time louder, more confident, I didn't flinch. I stood in the center of the cabin, holding the final journal in one hand and the key in the other. The door creaked open. It was him. This time, he wasn't pretending to be friendly. "You have no idea what's down there," he hissed. She couldn't even begin to grasp its power. "Neither could you," I said. "You want to use it. I want to understand it." His hand twitched, inside his coat. A weapon? Before he could act, I pressed the sigil on the back of the journal against the old wooden beam in the center of the cabin. A low rumble. Floorboards shifted, gears clinked, and a hidden staircase opened beneath the fireplace. His eyes widened. You unlocked it? I'm not the placeholder, I said. I'm the heir. I ran down the stairs, and the door sealed behind me. Inside was a chamber lit with soft blue light from crystals embedded in the walls. At the center, a pedestal with a box. Inside it, a strange metallic orb inscribed with the same sigil. I didn't touch it. I just stared, because I understood now.
It wasn't just about me.
This wasn't just inheritance, it was guardianship. A test. Of character. Of truth. Of responsibility. Above me, Vale screamed. He hadn't won. And he never would. I stayed in the chamber for hours. I don't know how long exactly. Time seemed to blur in the soft glow of the walls. There was a stillness down there, like the air itself was holding its breath. Eventually, I approached the orb. The inscriptions were faintly warm under my fingertips, pulsing with a rhythm that almost felt alive. I didn't know what it was exactly. Energy source?
Key?
Memory vault? But I did know it was alive in some way. Waiting for someone worthy. I whispered, I don't want power. I just want to protect what she believed in. And then, like a whisper of approval, the orb dimmed and cooled in my hands. A section of the wall shimmered, revealing a panel of text etched into the stone. Not English. But somehow I understood. To guard the sacred is not to possess it. To inherit the truth is to suffer it. Do not seek to control, only to carry. I bowed my head and placed the orb back into the box.
Sealed it.
And took a deep breath. When I ascended back into the cabin, the door had reset itself. Locked tight, as if nothing had ever happened. Malcolm Vale was gone. There was no trace of him. No footprints. No tire marks. Just silence. I checked the journals. Nothing had been taken. My wall of notes, shredded, yes, but salvageable. Still, the weight of it all was different now. I wasn't afraid. I was responsible. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt, reorganized, documented every page, every letter. I even started scanning everything to a secure drive, though I knew some of it probably couldn't be understood by machines. And then I made a decision. I called a woman named Eliza Quinn, a professor of ancient symbology from Vermont. She had published a paper on pre-Christian glyph patterns that mirrored some of the ones in my grandmother's notes. I told her I had found a collection of journals from a relative and asked if she'd help me interpret them. She was cautious at first, but curious. I sent her a few scanned pages. Within hours, she called back. "Where did you get these?" she whispered, like she was afraid someone might be listening. "I think they were meant for more than one pair of eyes," I said. "But they need the right ones." She came to Coldwater Springs 3 days later. Eliza wasn't just brilliant. She was intuitive, humble, and open-hearted. Exactly the kind of person my grandmother would have trusted. Together, we began decoding the deeper layers of the journals, the maps, the messages, the meanings behind the rituals. And as we dug deeper, I understood what my grandmother had really built. She wasn't just hiding knowledge from people like Vale. She was preserving humanity's forgotten wisdom. Buried in the pages were instructions on plant-based medicines lost to colonization, philosophical codes passed down in oral traditions, and ancient songs written in symbols, vibrations said to heal and awaken. This wasn't a library. It was a sanctuary. And now it was mine to guard. But I didn't keep it hidden. Not entirely. A year later, I turned the cabin into something new, the Circle Refuge. Not a cult. Not a business. A space. For thinkers. Healers. Truth seekers. People like me who'd lost everything and then found a thread to something more. It started small. A few writers, a musician from Mali who'd lost his father, a burned-out neuroscientist who said she hadn't dreamed in a decade. They came. They stayed. They healed. They gave back. I told them the truth, not all of it, but enough. And slowly, the circle began again. Not the old one. A new version. One built on presence, not power. One that asked not, "What can I get from this?" but, "What am I willing to become for it?" As for Vale, Eliza and I searched for records, traced emails, hired a cyberforensics expert. but it was as if he vanished again, a ghost with teeth. I keep the orb under the cabin now, behind a lock only I can open. And sometimes, at night, I still hear the wind say my name through the trees. But I'm not afraid anymore, because I'm no longer the broke, jobless man staring into the void. I'm the keeper of a legacy, a bridge between worlds. And it all began with a letter, a single envelope that whispered, "There is more waiting for you. But first believe."